Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics, history, and action figures. And as you can see, I am walking down into my secret lounge, the place where I display the best of my action figure collection. And today, we're going to come over here and take a look at my Marvel Legends displays. Yep, we're going to go shelf by shelf, talk about each one of these, what my thoughts were as I was putting them together, and kind of why I picked the figures that I did. But when you have a display this awesome, you gotta start somewhere, and the only place that makes any sense is with the Earth's mightiest heroes. So let's take a look at what I've got going on with my Avengers display. So first of all, I did a whole video on this, so if you want to check out kind of what I was thinking as far as why I picked the figures that I did for this display, please do that. There's actually been a couple of changes, so we're going to look at that as we go. But, you know, the Avengers are, to me, like I said, they're Earth's mightiest heroes. They are the captains of the Marvel Universe. And so I really tried to pick a grouping here that represented sort of my favorite classic time of the team. And for me, that's kind of the late 70s through the middle 80s. But anytime you're talking about the Avengers, you've got to start with the big three. And here they are: Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. Now, for the ones that I chose, I've got the 20th anniversary Captain America, but with a custom head, and I'll leave information on that in the description. I've got an old Toy Biz Thor, because I really feel like this Thor is the most cartoon or the most comic classic version. I like it even better than some of the new Marvel Legends ones. And then I had to go with the Mafex for that classic 70s and 80s Iron Man. So these three are definitely going to be the foundation. But behind them, you have original Avenger and overall giant badass, the Incredible Hulk. And this is the Marvel Select Immortal Hulk. And he's so big, but what he does is he grounds this entire display. Like he absolutely is the shape of it. Now behind him, we've got several versions of another founding Avenger, the mighty Ant-Man. So this Ant-Man I think is so cool, as I use different versions of the character to show that he's like either growing back to normal size or shrinking down to ant size. I have the Toy Biz Build-A-Figure Giant Man, which has one of their best facial sculpts, absolutely. And the new HasLab Giant Man is great. It just would overpower this entire display. And then I have the Goliath from the Marvel Universe line. Really cool. Another founding Avenger with the Wasp. This newer figure is just so spectacular. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just so gorgeous. And then we've got some of the more, 70s, 80s Avengers with Herc and Captain Marvel, this great Wonder Man, which I'm so glad that we finally got an 80s safari jacket Wonder Man. Down along the front, you've got more of the most classic Avengers, Hawkeye and Black Widow, as well as on this side, Vision and Scarlet Witch. Now, Green Quicksilver was one of the second wave of Avengers with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, so he certainly gets there. She-Hulk is one of the greatest 80s Avengers, and then some really other great ones. Carol Danvers, Warbird, about to get replaced by a new figure, Black Panther and Falcon. There's just so many great Avengers characters that this could be 5 different displays this size, but for me, these are kind of the classic late 70s, early 80s Avengers. One of my current favorite displays, and one that is in perpetual change, is the Spider-Verse display. Now, the Spider-Verse display is so fun because it gives you an opportunity to put in figures that wouldn't necessarily fit anywhere else, but they always work as a part of the Spider-Verse. But at the center of the Spider-Verse, I've got this incredible centerpiece here with the main characters, and they're all on these floating plates with the giant wire stands from Iron Wing Collectibles. And I'll include a link to these stands as well, because you're going to see them in multiple displays. But right in the center, you have Miles, Pete, and Gwen. On top, you've got Scarlet Spider, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Punk, and then down kind of leaping out of the bottom, Spidey 2099, Spider-Ham, Penny Parker, and Spider-Man India. And as I walk around this display, you can see that on these flight stands, it's like they're all just like exploding out of the center. It's such a cool look. In any way that you look at it, it just really has this dynamic feel to it. I absolutely love it. But I have had so much fun with this display, adding in things that maybe you wouldn't have seen. Like this is a 1970s Bandai die-cast metal Leopardon that I picked up on my trip to Japan this past summer. You can't have a Spider-Verse display without a Spider-Mobile, and so I used the Iron Wing flight stands to get that guy up in the air and flying around. Here is a custom spectacular Spider-Man head, which I think just looks absolutely incredible. And of course, you've got some of the characters. There's Spider-Boy. But then here are kind of vignettes from the movie. Here's Miles and Pete. And then here is Miles as the Prowler and the Prowler as the Prowler. So there's just so many opportunities with this display. Like over here, I've got Spider-Man Japan and then the custom Spider-Man 77 that I made that's probably going to be quickly replaced when the new one comes out from the Walmart exclusive. But overall, this is just such an absolutely fun display of the Spider-Verse. Heroes are only as good as their villains, and thankfully, over the 20 plus years that we've been getting Marvel Legends figures in 6-inch scale, we have gotten a ton of villains. And this is my main Marvel villains display. I think there's some really cool, really unique ones in here. Some of my favorites include Batroc. You can see I've got Batroc the Leaper up in a leaping pose there. You have the Controller and Egghead kind of sneaking around in the back. Who would have ever thought that we would have gotten those two figures? Nuke and a newer edition, Bushwhacker, with that oh so disgusting arm of his. You know, you've got some figures that maybe you didn't think would ever come in 6-inch form, like Living Laser. But right at the center, you've got some serious cool dudes like Taskmaster, Dread Knight, and of course, you've got Ultron surrounded by Red Skull and Baron Zemo. So those are, some of the big boys. We've got some Serpent Society dudes over here. I happen to remember an issue of Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man with Backlash that was like so cool. So he makes the front row. Just a good-looking set of villains, but we're going to see a lot more where they came from. If you watched my long video where I went through the entire Secret Lounge, thank you. I truly appreciate that, but I don't believe that I had this shelf set up at that time. No, this is my AIM Shield Hydra shelf. And so you can see here I've got the forces of AIM with all the different AIM scientists surrounding MODOK. Such a cool figure. I love how all that yellow really matches over here, which is offset on the other side by all of the green of Hydra. So Hydra actually is really, really great because you've got all of the kind of leaders of Hydra, Viper, and this really nice Captain America figure that was from his time during Secret Empire when he was basically the leader of Hydra. Very, very cool. But they got to have some good guys. And so the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are right here in the middle with Dum Dum Dugan and Quake, as well as Sharon Carter. I've got what I think is kind of a more S.H.I.E.L.D.-esque Black Widow there. The S.H.I.E.L.D. Mandroid Build-A-Figure is hiding out in the back. But of course, Nick Fury is right here on the front with his jetpack flying into action. So you combine the forces of S.H.I.E.L.D. with their two greatest enemies, Hydra and AIM, and I think that makes for a pretty daggum good shelf. Over on the bottom row on the opposite side is another of Marvel's mightiest villains. This time, we've got some guys that I think would mostly be considered Hulk villains with these huge Build-A-Figures and oversized characters, as well as the very, very desirable figures of the Wrecking Crew. I recognize just how valuable those are, and so they are right there in all of their glory with Absorbent Man and Wrecker right down on the front. I really love that Zimnu figure. That's just so crazy. And then you've got kind of the figures that the Hulk would go against. the Leader and Radioactive Man, Armadillo, and of course, Abomination. But then holding down this corner are the they're not the Crimson Guard. I said that last time because that's like a G.I. Joe thing. But this is a combination of Diamond Select figures and Marvel figures that create the Crimson, whatever they are, the Russian bad guys of the Marvel Universe. But overall, they look really, really cool. So another super awesome shelf. Not too overdone because these figures are so big. I didn't want to have so many on there that they just kind of overwhelmed everything. But I think it's a pretty good balance. There's no shelf that I put more effort into getting exactly the way I wanted it than this X-Men shelf. You can see that I utilized the flight stands from Iron Wing Collectibles to really create some balance and some depth to this. My X-Men shelf is really divided into three distinct sections. Here in the center, you have the characters from Giant Size X-Men 1, the all-new, all different X-Men. Everybody from Nightcrawler to Thunderbird, Colossus, Storm, Wolverine, Sunfire, and Banshee. Of course, you have Professor X in his wheelchair with a custom blanket over his legs. And rising above them, the character and the storyline that really defined this team with Phoenix. You can see I utilized a dark Phoenix head on the new Jean Grey Phoenix body. To the right, on this side, you have the original X-Men, but they're in more of their, late 70s, 80s costumes with Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Beast, after he has undergone his transformation, that spectacular Angel figure holding up the back corner, and Iceman falling off of his ice sled, as he tends to always do. But then we switch over to this side, where we have the Jim Lee X-Men, the era that really kind of has defined Marvel Legends versions of the team. You've got everybody from Gambit and Rogue to Jubilee and Brown Suit Wolverine. You've got Bishop, Forge, and Psylocke. And in this corner, the Archangel figures. So what we see when we put them all together is my ultimate display of what I consider to be the greatest X-Men teams of all time. Hey, there's a lot of cool stuff down here. So if you're enjoying this sort of brief tour through my secret lounge, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you want to see. Would you like to see an in-depth dive into my Star Blazers collection? Or are you somebody who would be much more interested in looking at Transformers? Just let me know. But no matter what you do, go ahead and subscribe to Carbon Scoring because we are bringing you quality content like this every week. For me, this is a super fun shelf because as a kid of the 80s and somebody who grew up adoring the storytelling and artwork of John Byrne, I just had to get this Alpha Flight team put together and on display. And I love how I've got the flight stand for Guardian kind of lifting him up above the rest of his heroes, Sasquatch holding down one side, and the team just really came together so well. But by themselves, they are not enough to take over an entire shelf. So if they are representing the 80s, I have the Defenders representing the 70s. And you've got the original Defenders up here on top with Doctor Strange, Hulk, Silver Surfer, and Namor. And then kind of the late 70s, 80s Defenders with Damian Hellstrom, the son of Satan. And somebody gave me the idea to use the Peter Parker What If cape for him. And I think that actually does look really great. Love that Hellcat figure and Nighthawk, as well as that old Valkyrie. The other Valkyrie is up in my Asgard display. But if the Defenders represent the 70s, and Alpha Flight represents the 80s, then the 90s were all about the New Warriors. And there's some really cool designs in this display. I love that Speedball figure. Namorita is probably Namorita is one of the newer ones that came in. You've got Firestar. And I had to use the Nova that was the Marvel Unlimited subscription exclusive. I think it's pretty crappy that one was hidden behind you had to subscribe to Marvel Unlimited to get it, but he's the one that really best captures his look during his time on the New Warriors. So this is kind of my 70s, 80s, and 90s hero shelf. You didn't think we'd forgotten about Spidey, did you? No, of course not. And no one in the Marvel Universe has the kind of rogues gallery that Spider-Man has, but specifically the heart and soul of his Rogues Gallery was all created in the first 38 issues that were drawn by his co-creator, Steve Ditko. Now, Steve Ditko was plotting most of these issues, so a great deal of the credit for the design and look of these characters should fall to Steve Ditko. Obviously, you have to start with kind of his main enemies, Green Goblin, J. Jonah Jameson, and this brand new Mezco Doc Ock figure. It looks so good up here with these other ones and is really, truly a better figure than anyone that we've gotten from Marvel Legends thus far. In the back, I have some customs like Molten Man and the Spider Slayer from that classic issue 25. Plus, here's the Crime Master, another early Ditko, kind of gangster villain. That lizard is literally ripped straight off of the pages. And as we come over here in this other corner, I do have a few more customs of the Big Man and the Enforcers. Again, Ditko had that kind of grounded, down-to-earth style where Spidey, yeah, sure, he would fight guys like Scorpion and Electro, but he was also fighting regular street villains as well. So this shelf is dedicated purely to all of my Ditko villains. But wait, we've got a few more villains down here, and some of these actually belong to Steve Ditko as well. Here's another set of kind of evil villains headlined by Dormammu, a character that was designed by Steve Ditko during his Strange Tales run. But this is where, some of the cooler, more mystical, sort of the Ghost Rider, the Doctor Strange villains, the Mindless One Build-A-Figure and the Void Build-A-Figure are hanging on back there. You've got that crazy Bi-Beast figure as well as Dr. Hyde. Just kind of a really fun, kind of almost red-themed shelf along this way that I think actually works super great for those sort of unique villains from the Marvel Universe. Across the Rainbow Bridge to Asgard. Those 67 cartoons from Marvel, Captain America, Iron Man, Namor, and Thor had the greatest theme songs of all time. So we're up top for the Asgard display, and this is a great opportunity for me to flex and show off my original Fing Fang Foom Build-A-Figure. He just looks so super cool, kind of lording over all the other Asgard figures. Now, one decision that I had to make was what Thor should I use in this display? And I decided to go with the Oliver Coipel-inspired Return of Marvel Legends Thor. Now, he's not kind of the classic Jack Kirby Thor, but I actually think he works really well in this display. First of all, it's an incredible figure. I mean, just look at that. Secondly, it really did mark Hasbro's return to 6-inch figures and their rededication to the Marvel Legends line. So it has a special place in collecting history, and so I thought it should have a special place in this display. Plus, it looks really good next to Jane Foster's version of Thor, as well as one of my all-time favorite action figures, the 1997 Toy Biz Beta Ray Bill. You show me a better figure and I'll buy it and put it on display, but I don't know that you're going to find anything better than that gorgeously sculpted vac metal goodness of Beta Ray Bill. Now, that figure is almost, 30 years old at this point. A brand new figure that I think is definitely going to stand the test of time is Odin. This new Odin from this past year is just absolutely fantastic. I really probably need to get him even more prominently displayed on here. But any way that you look at it, this is a pretty fantastic look from Asgard. If you had to ask me what is my second favorite Marvel comic after Spider-Man, it would have to be the Fantastic Four. There is just so much incredible storytelling, and the heart and soul of the Marvel Universe really came from the pages of the Fantastic Four, particularly those first 100 or so issues that were created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And thankfully, I've got both of them right here in my FF display. Now, the FF brought so many unique villains into the Marvel Universe, but it really was this first family of adventurers that everything was based on. And these Walgreens exclusive FF figures really do capture the early Kirby days so incredibly well. Now, I did cheat and I took two of the Fantastic R's, the flying bathtubs from the original Toy Biz Build-A-Figure, and sanded them down and stuck them together to create one flying bathtub Fantastic R. And you can see Franklin Richards and Herbie in there. Of course, I've got the Mezco version of Lockjaw with the rapidly expanding Inhumans. We just need a couple of more. I got a couple of customs back there waiting for the official ones to come in. But when you talk about the first family of the Marvel Universe, this is where you've got to start. But we don't have to end there, because perhaps my favorite run on the Fantastic Four was John Byrne. Now, I talked about how much I loved John Byrne in the 80s, and his run on FF in the 80s was absolutely spectacular. Of course, he changed their uniforms after a trip to the negative zone, kind of inverted the colors. She-Hulk joined the team after the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, so this grouping is meant to represent that look of the team. And this has some of the most classic villains of all. You've got the Mole Man, Namor, and Doom on this custom throne that was provided to me by Toy Blocks. Very much appreciate that. The Watcher, and then different heralds of Galactus like Firestar, like Fire Lord, Nova, and of course, back here in the back, the Silver Surfer. And they're all circling around that incredible Toy Biz Build-A-Figure Galactus, which was, really the start of so much, and it fits so well in this display. One more flex, I do have my original Dragon Man figure, and I know that we're getting a new one, and I'm so excited that everybody's going to have an opportunity to own a Dragon Man, but you're going to be hard-pressed to beat how good that one is. So when you talk about Marvel, you talk about the Fantastic Four, and my two FF shelves are two of my absolute favorites. Oh, we're totally not done with Spidey villains, not by a long shot. And when you're on the second shelf of Spidey villains and you've got such incredible bangers down here as the Rhino, Venom, and Kingpin, you know that you've got the ultimate Marvel Rogues Gallery. There are some that I love. I love this back corner that has Puma and Silver Sable and the Rose. That's kind of my Ron Friends, Tom DeFalco corner there. I just think that is so fantastic. Hobgoblin was the very first villain in the comics that I read, so he's always going to have a special place in my heart. And I chose a very Todd McFarlane looking version of Venom to be the center of this display, flanked by those two big boys, which look so great. One of the newest additions to this side is Kane. And I tell you, we get a few more figures and we might be able to have an entire Clone Saga display going on. But for now, he's going to be part of Spidey Villain Shelf number 2. I never want to claim that any particular shelf is my favorite, but there are some that are just so much more fun than others. And that's really what we've got going on here with what I call my cosmic shelf. Now, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, I will grant you that, but I really think that they all fall thematically kind of in the same place. Now, of course, you've got people that you absolutely would expect to be on a cosmic shelf, like Thanos, along with the little death sculpture that came from Diamond Select. That Adam Warlock is not very soon for this display. He's not very long for this display. I mean, he's going to get replaced relatively quickly as the new one's about to come out. And Quasar back there, another really super cool one. But it's the stuff like the team building that we're able to do. Like, we're starting to put together a much more classic version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. That Yondu and that Star-Lord, that kind of classic comic Star-Lord is so awesome. So is that Drax and a much more comic accurate Groot back there in the back. I love Binary. That's such an awesome cosmic character. But she appears again as Captain Marvel with other Kree soldiers around her. Of course, you've got to have the different versions of the Nova Corps. And they're all sneaking around back there with Ronan the Accuser and the Kree Sentry. This is arguably one of the coolest figures that Hasbro has ever done, the Cosmic Ghost Rider. I mean, that thing is just so bananas and awesome. And I love that its display stand allows you to have it kind of up high on a tilted angle. That's just so cool. If you've got the good guys, you got to have the bad guys. And so we've got a whole pack of Skrulls over here. Howard the Duck just sort of, I don't know why he kind of fits, but the ones that I'm kind of the happiest about are the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Death's Head. He just looks fantastic right here at the front of this shelf. That yellow, blue, and red, so great. And another of our kind of cosmic heroes. He doesn't really fit anywhere else, but he absolutely had to get down here, and that's Crystar, the Crystal Warrior. So it's just fun, right? You know, sometimes comics can just be bananas and be fun, and that's really what this shelf screams out to me with Death's Head and Crystar standing in front of Thanos. I don't know, man. This is what action figure collecting is supposed to be about. Okay, this is one of my oldest shelves and one of my ones that's probably in the most need of a complete overhaul and renewal, and it's my X-Men villain shelf. You know, you've got figures that date back to 2002 up here on this shelf. You've got Toy Biz figures from 2007. You've got Toy Biz original Build-A-Figures. All of these have been redone by Hasbro, but there's just something so great about these original Toy Biz figures. I'm just not sure how many of them are going to get replaced. I mean, obviously, Toad can get replaced. Avalanche can get replaced. I have already switched out the Pyro in there. But, oh man, these Build-A-Figure Sentinels are so good. I did pre-order the new kind of X-Men 97 Sentinels, so they're definitely going to have more of a color pop when you look at this. But there's just so much goodness. There's so much built-up coolness. Black Tom, Silver Samurai, that I love it, but I know that I've got newer, more definitive versions of so many of these. So very soon, we're going to have a video where I redo this X-Men villains display. I don't even know that I have that much to say about my Iron Man armory other than just I love all that red and gold. There's just so many unique different versions of Iron Man up here. There's ones that, you know, some are older than others. Some are from different lines. Some are just crazy. Some are vac metal. Some are plastic. Some represent short periods of time in the comics. Some are ones that are some of the most classic looks of his armor of all time. Gigantic, huge Thor Buster, Hulk Buster figures, and maybe the coolest one of all, the House of M Iron Man. So anytime you've got a Marvel Legends display, you pretty much have to dedicate an entire shelf to an Iron Man armory. We've talked Cosmic, we've talked Mutant, we've talked Avengers, but we've got to look at those street level heroes, those kind of grimy, gritty Marvel characters that really have their own place in the Marvel Universe and therefore have their own shelf dedicated to them. And what you see here is the corners are held down by the Ghost Rider. You've got the original Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, and then if you come across, you've got the brand new 90s Danny Ketch Ghost Rider. Now, two of my favorite heroes from the 70s and 80s, the heroes for hire, Power Man and Iron Fist, right there together, just as they absolutely should be. You've got Punisher with a custom kind of Mike Zeck head on that Punisher body, as well as Jigsaw. A couple of super underrated characters in the back with Cloak and Dagger. Very cool. And Cloak has a custom cape on. Shang-Chi, as well as Disco Dazzler. She just felt so 70s to me. She kind of had to be in there with Moon Knight and Man-Thing. But right in the middle, I've got the Mafex Daredevil figure. And of course, if there's anybody that's like the head of the street level Marvel characters, it is definitely Daredevil. So here's Daredevil flying up around. You can see his billy club weaving and circling around him. I think that makes for such an awesome look for the display. And behind him on a custom gargoyle base that was provided to me by Iron Wing Collectibles, I've got Bullseye and Elektra. So when you look at my kind of Marvel Knights, sort of my ground level hero shelf, it all revolves around that Daredevil figure, and it looks just freaking awesome. So we've looked at two other shelves of Spidey villains, and those are some of the classics. You're talking Green Goblin, Venom. But let's talk about some of the lesser known Spidey villains, the ones that I actually think warm my heart more than anybody else. And those are the ones that are down here on this shelf. Everybody from Jack o' Lantern to the Fly, all the way through Boomerang and Speed Demon. And of course, you've got some of my absolute favorite ones. Razorback, who I don't think is actually a bad guy. I think he's an ally of Spider-Man. So is Frogman and White Rabbit. I've got a custom spot standing right in front of that spectacular man-wolf figure. Oh, so good. Here's a custom Cardiac. Really super good. We definitely need a new one of him. I've got the female Beetle, as well as one of the newer figures in this entire collection, and that is the female Electro. And you can see she is right here flying on one of those custom flight stands with her awesome electric effects flaring out all over the place. So this is a display that makes me smile every time I look at it. And yeah, there's some that maybe kind of don't fit, but they fit perfectly in this display of sort of the goofy side of Spidey's villains. So we have finally come to ground zero, the epicenter of my entire display, my 6-inch Spidey display. I did do an entire video on this shelf on the reasoning for the figures that I picked, the ones that I left out. But the long and short of this is meant to be a journey through Spidey's artistic history, looking from the very beginning with Steve Ditko's Amazing Fantasy 15 through the entire Ditko era of the comics, leading into the John Romita Sr. time when we get into the 1980s with Ron Frenz and Todd McFarlane and his huge impact on the web spinner, all the way up through Mark Bagley and Eric Larson. We get into the Clone Saga here in the back, and then some of the more modern Spider-Man artists like Humberto Ramos and J. Scott Campbell. They're all represented here. This is meant to just take you down memory lane through the entire history of Spider-Man. And I think that I've done it in a way that really allows for each individual figure to stand out and really be a part of this display. It is the one that I am the happiest about when I come down here, because I look at it and I just know all of the heart and soul, all of the joy of collecting, all of the creativity that goes into it. So I hope you guys have had as much fun as I have exploring down in the Secret Lounge. It's just a super fun place. It's where I come to get away from everything. And as always, for the best in comics history and action figures, subscribe to Carbon Scoring.